Welcome to our latest installment of Painting the Talisman Sabre Way, our painting tutorial series covering how to paint your 3D printed Talisman Sabre terrain in order to match our fully painted terrain sets. In this episode, we'll be painting dungeon walls, which are available in our dungeon pack and dungeon expansion sets. These walls will go perfect in any dungeon or crypt-themed terrain setup. They really are to die for. So let's grab our paints and get to it. To paint your dungeon walls, you'll need the following paints, or their nearest equivalents based on what may be available to you in your locale. A flat black primer, and the following Deco Art Americana colors: Graphite, Gray Storm, Victorian Blue, Ocean Blue, and Gray Sky. Finally, a clear matte varnish. After applying the black primer to your terrain, you'll want to apply a heavy dry brush of the graphite color to the walls. Following the same method as in our previous painting videos, the key to effective dry brushing is to get most of the paint off the brush onto a dry paper towel, and then use quick light strokes, attempting to only get paint on the raised edges of the terrain piece, leaving the recesses dark and unpainted. For best results when dry brushing the wall tiles, do your best to only get paint on the walls, and avoid getting paint on the floor sections where possible. This will save you time during touch-ups later. With a clean dry brush, we're now going to apply a lighter dry brush coating of the Gray Storm color over the walls, so as to leave the undercoating of the graphite gray color visible, but adding highlights of the lighter gray to all the raised edges of the terrain. We will now begin painting the floor tiles, following the same method as found in our Dungeon Hexes painting tutorial video. With a smaller brush, we'll apply a dry brush coating of the Victorian Blue base color to the floor hexes. If you have inadvertently spread too much of the gray colors onto the floor portions of the wall pieces during the previous steps, you may need to touch up the floors with black paint once more before proceeding to this step. However, if there's only a minor amount of gray on the floor sections, that step can likely be avoided, as the blue colors will cover up the majority of any visible gray. Next, we'll apply an even lighter dry brush coating of the Ocean Blue color to the floor sections of the terrain piece, doing our best to not get any blue onto the stone walls themselves. Don't worry if you do though, because you can always touch up any offending sections later on. We'll now apply the final dry brush coat, a very light application of the Gray Sky color as a final highlight to all the walls and floors. Remember, this is a light highlight step, so be sure to get the majority of the paint off the brush onto the paper towel before proceeding with the dry brushing. For the majority of the dungeon wall terrain pieces in the dungeon pack, this will be the final step in the painting process. However, for the barred window walls shown here, we still have the metal bar pieces to paint, which we'll take care of following this dry brush step. For painting the barred windows, you'll want your favorite metallic colored paint. In the studio, we use bronze or iron colored paints for metal on our dungeon pieces, but you're free to use whatever color suits your dungeon tastes best. With a finer detail brush, apply the metal color to all the barred window sections, taking care to avoid getting the metallic color onto the freshly painted stone walls. If you did end up getting some of the metal colored paint onto those pristine dungeon walls, just do some quick touch-ups using the graphite gray color used in the first painting steps of this tutorial, and cover up all those offending metal sections. Because our dungeons don't have maids to clean them regularly, we'll want to add a brown wash to the metal bars so they don't look quite so new and shiny. Simply apply the wash to all the metal sections you just painted, and let the terrain dry for at least 30 minutes or so before proceeding to the next step. Once the wash is completely dry, take a small brush and apply a very light dry brush highlight coating of the original metal color back over the washed pieces. This will pick out those raised edges and provide that final touch to your dungeon terrain piece. Once complete, spray the terrain with a clear matte varnish, set out your favorite dungeon scenario, and enjoy.